Love this podcast? Support us by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Hit the link in the episode description to support us now. Thanks for listening and enjoy. Yo, Nicole.
Yo, Rolando.
So, growing up, what would you do after school? Like, and this is when you're like a lot younger. Before high school, prior to high school. Like, what would be the thing that you do after school?
Geez. Most of the time, if I wasn't outside playing, I'd be inside watching television. More specifically, Nickelodeon.
Outside playing. Outside playing. Like, who are you?
I actually had a really vivid imagination, and we loved to play.
Oh my god! All right, that's cool. I guess. I don't think many of our audience members can relate, but
I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't allowed to go out and hang out outside growing up because my grandma was convinced that like something would happen to us.
And she was probably right. And you were also in the city.
Statistics would say otherwise, but I wasn't
Yeah.
in the. Oh, that's true. I wasn't living in the Bronx. I guess
Yeah.
specifically during this time period. So yeah, grandma.
I had a backyard. So.
Yeah. Oh no backyard here. We had a driveway when we moved to Jersey. That is the extent of our backyard. What about you, Eddie? Do you have any memories of like after school doing something?
I had like all my cartoon lineups.
You did have a cartoon lineup also.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, same. So I also
like
grew
a
up
whole
with a
bunch.
cartoon lineup, right? And you mentioned Nickelodeon, right? That sounds a little bougie
Yeah.
because
Bougie.
it's super bougie because Nickelodeon was like you had cable.
Okay, yeah, maybe that. Well, I also did watch Power Rangers. I think when it came on at like 3 or 4 on ABC, and a couple of those other shows. But then I went straight to Nickelodeon.
Power Rangers was in our market Fox 5.
Okay, Fox 5.
Oh my god, it's like
I don't
you
remember
even
the
know.
networks.
I could tell you straight up. So I usually actually watched Channel 11.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be the Disney lineup. So we're talking Goof Troop. We're talking Darkwing Duck. DuckTales, I don't remember really watching DuckTales that much, but I do remember the theme song, so it was like embedded in me. And then, of course, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers.
Yeah, I watched none of that.
I can't believe. And then, yeah, those were, and that was like free. That was like, you didn't need Disney Channel. You didn't need Nickelodeon. Those were just
Well,
like,
I mean, I had a
syndicate.
backyard, so of course I also had cable.
So that's also even more super bougie. So yeah, I like an urban child grew up just watching TV, and that was a big part of my childhood.
and being in danger of getting kidnapped and not being able to go outside.
Oh,
Yeah.
my grandma being afraid. I couldn't even go when I moved to Jersey. I couldn't even go to across the street to my neighbor's house to like visit because, as my grandma would say, no puede ir a la casa ajena, which means like
Casa ajena,
yeah,
yes.
it's like strangers' houses,
Yeah.
Casa ajena.
Yeah.
No puede
Yeah.
quedarte en casa ajena.
But yeah, so this is my long-winded way of saying we're covering Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers. I'm saying Chip and Dale's like the dancers, Chip and Dale,
Yeah. Yeah.
the Rescue Rangers.
Mhm.
Yeah, and if you didn't know, there's a big Disney Plus original film that revived the franchise. So we got you covered, guys. I'm Rolando,
And I'm Nicole,
and this is Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals
an original podcast.
about
Unoriginality.
originality.
Can't believe this. I think this is the first time in my life I've been accused of being bougie. So thank you for that, Rolando. There is a first for everything.
I mean, you're in Powell Park. Like, that's pretty... That's,
Well,
as
Powell
someone who
Park
grew up
now.
in Hudson County.
Yeah. I mean, back then it was. I mean, when I was growing up, it was very Italian centric. It was very different. But yes,
I don't... What? But were they still homes with yards?
there were homes with yards.
What are
yeah,
you trying
but
to say
now
about
it's
Italians?
Well, now it's actually become more of a city. Ever since we got
Oh.
a huge Korean population, it's kind of like put Palisades Park on the map. So we were like quieter back then.
Yeah, I could see that being the case. I understand that. I mean,
Yeah.
the food that came.
Oh, I miss it to this day. But we're not talking about the amazing Korean food in Palisades Park, New Jersey. We're talking about Chippendale. So my earliest memory of Chippendale, because I didn't watch it, obviously you guys have probably more memories than I, being fans of Rescue Rangers. But for me, I have only two memories of Chippendale.
Mm.
One is meeting them at Disney, and I have a picture of me with them.
Did you even know who you were meeting?
I must have. I think I was aware of them because I also, my memory of them is I had a VHS of like Christmas songs or Christmas moments in Disney.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this skit where Mickey Mouse and Pluto were trying to put up their Christmas tree, but Chippendale were in the tree and they were just messing with them the whole time and driving Pluto mad.
I do know this one. Yes.
And I loved that skit. I thought it was so funny. And I just, I'm a big fan of Christmas, so I loved that video. So that's where I knew them.
I don't know if they were called skits. They're just shorts, aren't they?
Some of them were specifically made for the VHS. Some of them were taken from films
I
and
see. Okay.
stuff. So
Well, this is unusual, but I can actually give you a little bit of history on Chip and Dale because I did my homework.
oh, look at you! I'm so excited.
And I actually did like. I liked the Chip and Dale's characters from the animated series. Right, I never cared for them, like when they were in like the Disney shorts.
Okay.
They're whack. They're naked. Who wants that? No, I want Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, and I thought they were so cool. I love the mysteries of the TV show and its cast of wacky characters, but. Chip and Dale's, the characters themselves, they premiered in 1943 in a short called Private Pluto.
Wow.
And yeah, at the time, they looked identical, right? It wasn't until a little later on where they started getting like distinctive features. So Chip was the dark-nosed one, and he was supposed to be like the smarter one. And Dale would be the red-nosed one. He's supposed to be a little bit more aloof, a little bit...
Comedy relief guy?
Yes, very much comedy relief. So for surprising, they're like quite popular with Disney, but they only had three cartoons where they were the stars. Everything else, they were just like secondary characters to either Pluto, Donald, and in your case, like you mentioned, Mickey and Pluto, right? But generally speaking, they were in Pluto and Donald cartoons. And it's in 1989 when they remerged, when Chip and Dale's premiered part of the Disney afternoon lineup, right? And they got ordered after the success of DuckTales, right? DuckTales was a TV show. It was popular. And as a result, Disney was moving on, like commissioning TV shows. And initially, the creators of Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, they wanted to create a show based around the rescuers, so Bianca and Bernard. However, because Rescuers Down Under was about to come out, Disney wasn't sure how it was going to perform in the box office. They didn't want to commit to having a show around the rescuers in the event that the film doesn't do well. Down Under was not a success, despite the fact that I think it's better than the original.
Oh, okay.
I think it's much more colorful. The animation is way nicer in the Rescuers Down Under, and I think the storyline is cooler. But anyway, so the creators kind of created a show around these like kind of woodland creatures solving mysteries, and they had a mouse who would eventually become Chip, but he was like an original character creation. And what happened was Disney decided, it's like, we like this idea, but instead of creating an original character, why don't you look in our library and see if there's a character you can use, so that way we have a little bit of like, brand recognition. And they picked Chip and Dale, and they reworked it, instead of having one main character, to have two main characters, right? And Chip is based off of Indiana Jones, right? His design.
Yes.
And Dale is based off of Miami Vice.
No.
Magnum PI.
I was
Thank
gonna
you.
say
You're right.
Tom Selleck.
He looks
You're
like
right.
Tom Selleck. Yeah.
Tom
yeah.
Selleck.
Magnum
Yeah.
PI. My bad. Yes. That's
Which
who he-
fun fact? Actually, Tom Selleck was supposed to be the original Indiana Jones. So I guess.
Oh,
that's
was he?
fitting.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah,
even
he
know.
got fitted and everything, but then
That's
he,
funny.
contract wouldn't let him.
Uh,
Anyway.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like a little bit of background of the Chippendale character and how the show got developed. And yeah, and I mean the show had such a kick-ass theme song, right? Like sometimes some crimes,
Go slipping to the cracks.
but these two. This song is so good. Gumshoes. They're
Mhm.
picking up the slack. That's I mean the song is just so good, and it's such a good opening.
Yeah.
I mean that's what Disney had back then. Like that song, the DuckTales theme song is top notch. Darkwing Duck.
Darkwing Duck.
Oh my god, Darkwing Duck. It had like my favorite. That was I like Chippendale. Darkwing Ducks I did prefer. Like I
okay.
was all about Darkwing Duck. Am I just saying things to you? Like you're aware of
I
these
think you are
references, right?
at this point.
You don't know
yeah.
Darkwing Duck?
I know of it.
Never watched any Darkwing Duck. Darkwing Duck is so good. Darkwing Duck is like Disney's...
By the time Disney became accessible to me, like all these shows, I didn't care.
What are you talking about? Like, but if you were watching Nickelodeon had whack programming compared
Well,
to...
yeah, but I was
Disney
watching
Afternoon.
Nickelodeon before I was like 10. My favorite movie when I was 12 was a black and white movie. So like I grew up in terms of my taste relatively quickly.
Anyway.
They're just staring at me right now.
Yeah.
Like they're just
Um,
flabbergasted.
Yeah, I don't even know how to respond. But the show had 3 seasons. 3 seasons divided up in like I think 2 years, right? 1989 and 1990 were the initial runs of the TV show. And it would get syndicated on, Disney Afternoon lineup. I think it was also an exclusive to Disney Channel for some time. This is where my my research kind of waned a little, guys. But I don't know. Like the show was super successful. I mean, it spawned video games, of which I played, never owned. I rented. Yeah, and lots of merchandising. I distinctly remember having like a little chip, like stuffed animal.
No, I mean they were huge. They were present in Disney World. They were mascots of Disney for a while. And then they just kind of faded. And it's interesting because you used the word, they reemerged in the 80s. But I think they were, when they were first debuted in the 40s and they were a constant companion in these short films. First of all, they were nominated. These films that they were in were nominated for Best Short Film at the Academy Awards 4 years in a row.
Wow.
So they were quite popular. And that's where I knew them from. Like that skit of the Christmas tree is more old school Disney. So I think they had somewhat of a successful relationship. So reemerge, was that the first time they got rebooted?
Well, it's not a reboot per se, right? Because the Chippendale are it's hinted that like everything that happened in the past is still canon, and that like this is
Yes.
just one of their adventures.
Kind of. Well, they also did meet in high school. Are we talking about the new film?
No. I'm talking about the actual Chippendales, the animated series. So all their adventures that they had in the 1940s and all that stuff, like that's still their past. This is just like their new adventure, like being detectives.
Yeah.
So,
being Indiana Jones and Magnum PI.
Right.
Yeah.
Like this is just, and so weirdly enough, right? I didn't know this because like back then when I was a child, I didn't know that there was like, what's canon. There's an order to how you watch TV. I just watched because, each episode was like a singular told story, self-contained. And I didn't realize this until, we're rewatching the show now for the podcast, but the original pilot was actually more like a movie, right? It's like 5 episodes divided up. It was like a movie divided up into 5 episodes. That's kind of is your origin story. And the origins is that like these two mice, they didn't fall into crime fighting. Well, they didn't initially start off as crime fighters. They kind of fell into it just on their adventures and kind of met the gang and became the Rescue Rangers as a result.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they're not mice. I'm pretty
I'm
sure
sorry,
they're
you're right.
chipmunks.
Chipmunk.
Yeah.
Oh, rodent of some sorts,
Well, there's a mouse already, and it's Mickey, so
And
there
there
can't be
is
any more.
Also a mouse. Her name is Gadget.
She's a mouse.
Yeah,
Gadget's
Gadget is a mouse, as
Yeah,
is
so-
Monterey Jack.
Talk to me about some of these characters that they introduced in Rescue Rangers.
Okay, so as I mentioned, there was Gadget. She is, I don't know, the techie. I think also as I was watching it, I'm just like, oh, she's on the spectrum.
Oh, you really?
I didn't know this obviously as a kid, but like watching it now, it's very obvious. It's very evident that she is on the spectrum for
You
sure.
think so? I don't think so.
Oh no, she definitely is. If you, especially when I watched the pilot, like she was, the way she had to like verbalize her feelings
Mhm.
and like because she couldn't express them. So yeah, Gadget is on the.
Are you sure she's not just a Capricorn?
No, and I was watching a YouTube video. They based her off of this character from an '80s movie. I don't
Real
and even-
genius, yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay. There you go. Yeah. Who also is kind of like
On the-
high intelligence.
Wait, based
High
on the
intelli-
Val
what is it?
Kilmer character?
Which character?
Yeah, exactly. The Val Kilmer movie is Real Genius. Yeah.
But the girl is who they base her off of.
Jordan.
Uh-huh.
Her name is Jordan.
Who
So-
you know? That's like this thing. It's like high intellect, high IQ, low EQ.
Poor social skills, or
something
I
like that.
think this was a common representational thing in the 70s and 80s of like people who were really, really smart, but they didn't know how to like talk or express themselves well. I think we've gotten better at representing those things. But
Have we? I mean, we have Sheldon still.
with Sheldon.
Sheldon.
Big Bang
Big
Theory.
Bang Theory.
Oh, I never watched that show in my life, and I consider
Oh my
myself
God.
lucky.
What?
No, that
you
show's
missed
cute.
out.
I'm not gonna say. I won't lie and say it's like the greatest TV show of all time, but I think it's watchable.
It's very.
I always
funny.
get mad at people when they're just like, "Oh, that show, blah." It's just like it's just not bad.
Well, I'll take your word for it. But I mean, so I don't know how Sheldon was portrayed, but I don't think it's as commonplace. I think it was more commonplace in like kind of representing people in that certain way back in the day, personally.
Mhm.
So,
Oh, speaking of back in the day, I love when Disney, because I'm watching these on Disney Plus, when they put the warning being like, back then we did very, very culturally insensitive things and we apologize, but we're still
Yeah.
gonna let you watch this, which I respect. I do respect that methodology. But in the pilot episode, like the depiction of the Siamese cats is just as problematic as Lady and the Tramps.
seriously. See, there you go.
So when I was watching the
that's-
pilot, I was just like, "Oh, why are they putting this? Like, I don't remember anything being like fishy." Like, oh, there it is. Okay, my goodness.
I will say that when I was watching this, both the TV show and the movie, Gadget is voiced by one of my all-time favorite voice actors. So I was just very pleased to hear her in there. Her name is Tress McNally. And I mean, she's pretty much been in everything, but I love her from her work on The Simpsons and Futurama, where she's mom. And I mean, she's just so many characters in the Futurama. And then she
Oh.
plays a lot of like
Oh,
the sweet
Mom?
old lady and Mrs.
The old
Skinner.
lady.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was saying like mom. Who's mom? Okay, that's
Like
right.
the
Yeah.
evil
The conglomerate.
the conglomerate.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. She's a good character.
She's
I didn't
done
know that was
work.
her.
Yeah, she's done work in The Land Before Time and Rugrats, and she's just kind of everywhere. So if you really listen out for her, you'll be able to hear her. So like, I love the voice work that she does. So it was just such a joy to hear her because I was like,
Have I told you my Land Before Time story on the have
Tell
I
me
said it on the
now.
podcast?
I don't think so.
So,
Wait, save it for Jurassic World.
oh, you know what? That's probably a better one to save it for. Yeah. So guys, stay tuned for Jurassic World. I have like the dumbest story. My experiences with Land Before Time, though.
Dumbest, aka super super great story.
I think
so
it's a good
worth the
story,
hype.
but so stay tuned for that one. Okay,
There's
yeah.
Monterey Jack.
Monterey Jack, who he was like an explorer. He has a fly friend named Zipper. Zip, right?
Yep.
Zipper.
hmm
Okay.
The housefly.
The housefly. So interestingly enough, originally Zipper was supposed to be like the companion to the main character. However, because Chip and Dale came as a package, the creators felt it'd be weird to also introduce his fly as
Yeah.
like part of the crew. So like they tied him up
That
with
makes
Monterey
sense.
Jack. Monterey Jack, explorer. He has a mustache. He's obsessed with cheese. Right? He goes crazy anytime there's cheese around. That's usually those hijinks will create problems for the rescue rangers.
Interesting. Okay.
And yeah, Zip or Zipper. He's like the heart. doesn't say anything. He just flies around, just
Well,
there.
he does speak, but
I love characters like that.
Monty's the only one that understands him.
He speaks. Oh, right. Yeah, yes,
Dipper,
yes, yes.
and
yes,
other
only-
insects
exactly.
understand him too. And later on in the episodes, he begins introducing like more words in his vocabulary that people can understand.
Interesting. Yeah. See.
Wow. So did you guys watch a lot of these episodes?
Yeah.
Like, can you recall most of them when looking
I don't know if I
back
can
on them on
recall
Disney
most
Plus?
because there were a lot, but I do
Okay.
recall the theme song. I recall like just some episodes. Like I remember I had the episode on VHS with there was like a superhero dog, and Chip Dale was like obsessed with this TV show, and Fat Cat kidnaps a dog and tries to tarnish his name.
Oh wow.
And this is where Dale also realizes that like this Hollywood dog isn't like really a superhero, but they kind of teach him to like be more than just like a fraidy cat. I guess that was like a weird summary of this episode, but it was a good episode. I used to have that one on VHS. There was also a real good episode with a cult. It was like a cola cult.
Oh wow.
Bonkers. What else? There were and then the pilot. The pilot was a 5-part episode that I just rewatched and stuff. I could tell you
Yeah.
bits and pieces. Like I could tell you some of the characters that were there. Like there was like this evil genius who had like he was like a ginger, right? I don't remember his name, but he was like a villain, a regular villain to the Rescue Rangers. But their main antagonist was usually Fat Cat.
Fat cat. I love that.
Fat Cat.
So what character did you resonate the most with? Did you
Me?
have one?
Yeah, mine was always Chip.
The Indiana Jones one.
Yeah, and my sisters preferred Dale, and I was just like, ill. Why? Eddie.
Why did you like Chip? What was it?
I don't
about
know. He
Chip?
just seemed cooler, like the leather jacket and the hat.
The Indiana Jones vibe is
Yeah.
definitely cooler.
It
yeah.
just seemed cooler. He was also smarter, right? And he
And
usually
who doesn't want to be that? Yeah.
he seemed to call the shots usually.
Yeah.
Um,
From what I saw, I definitely also did like Chip more, but I was like, but I'm probably more the Dale in real life, which is why I like Chip more.
Eddie, did you have one?
No, I love Gadget. She was my favorite.
Oh,
Yeah, she's my
okay.
favorite.
Nice. There
Yeah.
you go.
What episodes did you see, Nicole?
I saw the pilot.
The official pilot, the 5-parter.
Yes.
Okay, and your
the,
thoughts?
The big one. I thought it was perfectly fine. I didn't though really feel like I got this big sense of the show. Like all of the character relationships just
Mhm.
kind of didn't really pop out to me.
That makes sense. I mean,
Um,
it's a pilot, right? It's weird because this one is smack in the middle of the first season on Disney Plus, and that's how they aired, right? Which means the pilot isn't what people saw first. People saw like their actual episodes first.
Yeah, and that was actually kind of common back then.
Yeah,
Which
like
is
I mean, there was
weird,
no
yeah.
real order, right?
Yeah.
But so that makes sense as to the pilot would not really introduce. You wouldn't know the characters well from the pilot because Chip and Dale are the stars, and like you're revolving around all these other characters, including some ones that you'll never see again, like Plato the dog.
Yeah, Plato.
Which was
Not Pluto, yeah.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
But I also was at a bit of a, I suppose, disadvantage because I actually pulled a Rolando for this and I watched it after I saw the film Rescue Rangers. So, which
Okay.
I watched while I was sick in bed with COVID.
So I just want to point this out. If you did not see Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers growing up, and you decide I'm going to watch this movie, you're not going to be put in a hindrance because I think they did a really good job of making this movie approachable.
Yeah.
So I think let's just get into it. Let's just talk about the new
Yeah.
movie.
I was trying to think of how I could sum it up. It's like Who Framed Roger Rabbit
Yeah.
meets like Space Jam or something. Like,
I think that's fair. I think
Yeah.
Space Jam New Legacy wishes.
yeah. Well, no, I didn't say New Legacy, and I ain't gonna.
No.
Like what those like whoever grew up watching Who Framed Roger Rabbit in theaters or something, or who watched Space Jam. I can't think of an equivalent since 1996, but this is kind of. I think this is gonna be that for like, younger people,
Right.
who are interested in watching this at least. So.
Yeah.
Too bad they can't see it at the theater, but whatever.
I know. So, I know we just did a TikTok where we were making fun of the fact that I don't like going to the theaters. However, this is a movie that I actually would have been okay seeing in a movie theater.
Yes. Well, so, I mean, all movie experiences are different, but I have a special place in my heart for comedy. I really just love watching comedies and laughing with strangers, like having this thing where we're all enjoying something together. And it would have been really nice to vibe off of what other people were finding funny and charming. That's a big reason why I wanted to watch it in the theater. Why did you want to watch it in the theater?
It just seemed fun. It just seemed like a fun movie that I would just enjoy seeing because there were so many references.
Yeah, a lot.
Right? And I think part of the joy of watching it in a theater is if you miss it, you missed it, right? I think there were so many references that like me and Eddie kept pausing and rewinding, being like,
yeah.
like it was
look
just
at,
like,
look
oh,
at this
my God,
poster in the background.
look at this,
that,
right?
Look at that.
Which changes the entire movie
Yeah.
experience, right? This is also part of the reason why, though, low-key I do like watching movies at home because I get to do that and like appreciate these little jokes that were slid in there, right? Like Eddie caught the Harry Potter character Dobby in the background,
The
of one of
Calvin
the
Klein
characters,
ad.
right?
Oh, wow.
He made me rewind.
I didn't see that.
I had missed it too, and I
So
saw it.
funny.
And it's Dobby in like a Gucci like window ad. You know what I mean?
Wow.
No, it's a Calvin Klein.
No, it wasn't. It was Gucci. He was
Gucci. Okay.
He was wearing like a Gucci. It was like a Gucci logo underneath. He was like modeling their clothes.
Wow, I gotta go back and see that.
So yeah, so this movie has so many references, and it's easy to miss them. But I think that is part of the fun of watching it on a big screen. It's just like you could like absorb more of it. I feel like.
Yes. I mean, compared, like I was sick in bed, so I watched it on my little 42-inch TV. So I definitely missed all those little things.
Yes. So, but I guess we should give a little bit of background on this.
Yeah, well, that's why I say Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Space Jam, because this is along those lines in where cartoons live amongst us.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
They're actually real living beings. They're not human beings, but they live in the same world that we live, and they live beside us, essentially. So in this movie, Chip and Dale are real people, or not people, but real chipmunks.
Characters. Yeah.
They're real characters who, at some point, I'm going to say maybe in the 70s or 80s, were both attending high school, and they gravitated to each other because they were both kind of the misfits. They were both chipmunks. And they developed such a close friendship but creative relationship, and it catapulted them into stardom. And that's when they got their show, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. So it definitely ignores all their 1940s stuff.
It does,
you know?
right? Like,
Which is fine.
or it doesn't, because like I think. Oh no, I guess it does, because like we don't get like their history with like Disney. We just get that they went into acting, doing like these little gigs, like when they were in Full House, for example, right? Like this random little moment that that's what I loved about this movie. What you just said is like that's so fucking stupid. Like, but it's like fucking stupid in like the funniest way possible, right?
Yeah, I'm like smiling when I say
exactly.
that. So,
and then they go off to become rescue rangers, and Dale decides he's kind of tired of being like the dumb one or like second fiddle to Chip, and tries to branch out on his own, ultimately breaking the success of the rescue rangers. And the movie really picks up after their careers have kind of all hit like kind of they're kind of in Arrested Development. Chip is an insurance salesman, and Dale relives the former glory days by attending cons and signing autographs and stuff. And he recognizes that he would have more pull if he was able to bring Chip along for the ride. But Chip and Dale have had a falling off.
And he's gotten essentially his version of plastic surgery.
Yes, that's right.
Where he's no longer in just two-dimensional cartoon form. He's now like three-dimensional CGI.
Like the Chipmunks. Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Alvin and the Chipmunks,
right.
Yeah. So, but Chip is not. So the whole movie, when they're together, there will be this two-dimensional cartoon character playing against a CGI three-dimensional one.
And those adorable squeaky voices that we grew to love as children are not there anymore. Now they're played by John Mulaney, who plays Chip, and Andy Samberg, who plays Dale, who upon hearing of their casting, I was initially just like, what? I can't get behind this. Is weird, right? Like, how are they supposed to be Chip and Dale? I'm shocked to say by the end of this, I was just like, I love them. I thought they were great.
Yeah, so this is how out of it I am in certain things. I know of John Mulaney, but I've never watched a comedy special of him. Didn't see like any Saturday Night Live performances or listen to any podcast that he's been on. So I don't really know his comedy style. So I guess this was a introduction. I'm perfectly okay with that.
That's
but
fine.
This was like an introduction to John Mulaney for me. And, it was kind of one note. I'll say that. I don't know if that's his whole shtick.
John Mulaney
he's like a curmudgeon or something.
Kind
but,
of, yeah. I mean, he's so good as Andrew Glauberman on what's that show? The hormone show, Big Mouth, on Netflix.
I never watched that either.
Oh my god, that show's also top notch. And but yeah, he is kind of like that kind of complainy.
John
kinda,
Complainy.
yeah.
I'm too busy watching old 50s, 60s movies, so I don't watch this stuff. But when I do, and I'm finally in the loop, I'm like, oh, so this is who everyone thinks is hilarious. Now I should probably see his stand-up.
Yeah,
I like
some of his stand-up.
But so I was expecting to like Chip more because I liked Chip. Well, no, actually, it was the other way around because I did watch the original Rescue Rangers second, but I didn't really like the Chip character because he was just so complaining and such a downer the whole fucking movie. And he wasn't funny. I thought Andy Samberg was funny, and that what he did with Dale was more interesting and more different than that. So that's my initial thing.
Interesting, because I liked Andy Samberg as Dale. I thought he was great, but the reason I loved John Mulaney's complaininess and whininess in Chip's character is because the trajectory of the character, he would be like, I relate to Chip, right? Like, you're in this situation, you don't want to be in this situation, and you hate every moment of it. Or there's just such great, he has great comedic timing as being like kind of very, when he's over it. One of the best ones is when they reveal there's like a big twist in the film as who the bad guy is, and he's just like, oh my god, Chip was right. Ugh. Like, he's so grossed out by how predictable the plot was, and he just like reflects it in his voice. I think he's such a good character actor. Granted, the character is very well known. I don't disagree with you, but I think it was seeing that voice in Chip's body worked for me because it's not the Chip I grew up with, who was one of my favorite characters. It's like Chip with a chip on his shoulder,
Yeah. Oh, how fitting. Are we sure Chip's not a Capricorn? Like, that's just what he sounds like.
John Mulaney might be a Capricorn.
Oh, this is true. I wonder if he is. Let's see.
But yes,
he's not. He's a Virgo. Same
so
thing.
The film really follows the story of Dale trying to rekindle his friendship with Chip, while at the same time trying to save Monterey Jack, who's been kidnapped by a gang. And the gang's plot is that they kidnap characters who fall into debt to them and then use them to create bootleg versions of movies. So the little fish girl, I think, was one of the ones that Flounder got into. Yeah, which was like the Little Mermaid. Yeah. Again, they give you like this entire montage of like the process to become a bootleg, and it's so fucking dumb, but it was.
Yeah. Well, it's also so dated, but I didn't mind it because I'm like, nobody watches like these kind of bizarre ripoffs that you would find in like cheap DVDs on like the side of the road or something.
So that's so interesting you should say that, because actually not that long ago I was watching a YouTube that market is still big.
Really?
Yeah, the bootleg market.
The direct-to-video market?
The direct-to-video bootleg market. Like,
wow.
I remember on the Redbox, for example, like Transmorphers. When Transformers came out, right? And, like, a lot of the... Like, their success is really just grandmas picking those movies by accident.
Oh, my God.
And bringing it to their kids. Which, related to my Land Before Time story.
Oh, wow. Were you told you would be watching Jurassic Park?
I won't tell you right now as to what happens. There's a little...
so many guesses I have. Yeah, That's actually kind of hilarious because I always thought that was just kind of like a porno thing where they would like, take the Little Mermaid or something, and then be like the Not So Little Mermaid and then
Right.
just make it a porn.
That's
which
become like a
is-
trend again, I think, in pornography.
Has
And
it?
definitely in gay porn, like the gay porn parodies.
Parodies.
Mm.
Yeah, they're good. Like,
So yeah, I guess that is the difference.
well
is that
done.
These are straight up parodies, while these are films that are really trying to pretend to be
mhm.
either the Little Mermaid or something.
Yes.
Well, okay, look at that. Again, something else I didn't know was happening right beneath my
Mhm.
nose. Yeah, so the whole thing becomes kind of like a Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers original TV show mystery.
Right.
To the point where they're even like the mystery of they had a
Monterey
name,
Jack?
the missing Monty or something.
I don't remember, but I do. Yes, I know what you mean. Like they gave you like a title for the would-be episode.
Yeah. And it kind of like the script works to like the audience's advantage where it becomes incredibly tropey and somewhat predictable
Mhm.
where, they befriend this girl who works for the LAPD or whatever, and
Mhm.
that's played by Kiki Lane as Ellie Stickler. And they just plant all these things where it's like, oh, she might be the
The bad
person
guy.
who's in on it and the bad guy. And you're with Chip too, who Chip's like, I don't know, Ellie didn't know any of our shows and Ellie's never been here and blah, blah, blah. And then towards the end, they kind of flip that in a really, I thought, effective and funny way.
Yep.
Before we get there, though, they interact with so many characters before they even get there, right? So we start off with the con, where Dale's at a con and he's trying to get people to care about him and sign
right,
autographs. And immediately we meet Ugly Sonic, which
Yes.
apparently I didn't know was a thing.
Oh wait,
That-
you don't know?
yeah.
You don't know the
Yeah.
Ugly Sonic story?
No.
Do you
I know
wanna-
that they they came up with the design of Sonic first and people were so outraged over it that they had to redesign him. But I
Mhm.
guess it became like a meme where it was like Ugly Sonic.
So no, I don't think anyone calls him Ugly Sonic. They call him Ugly Sonic in the movie because it falls under parody laws, and therefore Disney can't get sued because this is obviously a parody of Sonic the Hedgehog,
Okay.
right? But yeah, so Ugly Sonic is, for anyone who knows or doesn't know, Ugly Sonic was like the original design for Sonic the Hedgehog when the movie came out, and it really just upset a lot of people, myself included. I was just like, this gross. And people just took to Twitter and just harassed the shit out of the studio, and the studio caved and redesigned Sonic to look like more so the character that we grew up with, and it worked. Like, like the movie, it even spawned a sequel, for example. I haven't seen them yet. I do plan on watching them one day. I wanted to cover it for the podcast, but we might have been on break or something.
Oh, would that qualify as a remake or a reboot?
A reboot,
or-
because Sonic was on TV prior.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I think
know
it was.
that.
I want to say it was during COVID. I could be mistaken,
It
but
was
I want
in
to say
April, so
I'm pretty sure it was during COVID, so that's why we might have just like not.
maybe yeah.
We were depressed.
It got us this time. Yeah, they also meet Lumiere. I think Tigra was one of the people who also had a booth at con,
Yes,
at the cartoon
Tigra.
con or whatever. Yeah, Tigra. I wasn't familiar with her.
I wasn't
Um,
either. So I thought Tigra was from the she
You thought she was a Thundercat or something?
either a Thundercat or from She-Ra.
Okay.
That's who I thought it was, but it turns out she is an Avenger.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was an
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah.
While trying to get information, they go to this cheese guy called Bjornson, the cheesemonger, who I thought was like supposed to be the Swedish chef from
Yes,
the Muppets.
I think that's exactly who it was supposed to be.
Because especially at the end when he's like, playing his part again, he starts doing the whole Swedish Chef thing. And I was kind of bummed because Disney owns the Muppets, so why couldn't they just do Swedish Chef?
I assume it's just because he would have clearly been a villainous character.
Yeah, they didn't want to taint
yeah.
his beautiful image. So.
Yeah, like they were very careful. Like they usually were either original characters or characters that didn't have all right, spoiler guys. Peter Pan, interesting character to bring in as like the main antagonist for the film, right? What a tragic backstory. Do you know how they developed this backstory, or at least reason as to why they got this backstory specifically for Peter Pan?
Why?
Because the child actor who voiced Peter Pan, who played Peter Pan,
Yeah, live action Peter
oh,
Pan.
played Peter Pan live action. He was like, you know how Disney used to have contracts with actors? The moment he aged out, Disney discarded him like he was trash. And he got depressed, fell into hard drugs, committed suicide at age 31, right? He had a really tragic life. This kid who played Peter Pan that was a Disney contracted actor. And I thought it was pretty ballsy of these writers to use that as like kind of your catalyst. It's like, why use Peter Pan, right? It's too coincidental to not be intentional. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
So in this version of Peter Pan grew up and he is starting a bootleg empire because just like the actor was discarded, Disney kind of discarded Peter Pan because he kind of got aged out.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely the clever thing where everyone either was very familiar with someone or if they were in their like usual form, like Lumiere, they were there for like 2 seconds or, you know, like Flounder became a victim. Yeah, I think that the other characters are kind of like the chief of police.
Mm-hmm.
He's supposed to be Gumby, but he's not quite Gumby.
Right. I don't know who owns the rights to Gumby, but
yeah, me neither.
I actually like that character.
Yeah, no, me too. Well, J.K. Simmons, you know, like he's in everything, but I was also like, he's kind of perfect for this role.
He was really good as the
Yeah.
chief of police here. Yeah.
Yeah, especially towards the end.
Oh my god, that ending was like, again, spoiler guys. I hate to say this, but like the action sequence between Kiki, the actress, and like the Gumby type figure, that was such a well executed like action sequence.
Yeah.
Like I thought they did a really good job.
And it was just crazy, the voice acting and everything. It was actually really funny. It was like, oh, this is doing this. I appreciate this. They go to Uncanny Valley, which was also a funny part, where all the people who live in Uncanny Valley don't quite look right.
Right. Like,
they're
it's
like the
that
Disturbed cartoons.
I love the cats.
The cats, yeah, that was great. I was like, wow, what a stab.
Yeah.
What a fresh wound.
So fresh.
And then Seth Rogen's character.
Seth Rogen's character.
The
Seth
dwarf.
Rogen's character, yeah, who's like, I am looking at you, and he's just looking straight, like a video game character. Yeah, funny stuff. I mean, I'm trying to think of all the other references in there, but
the Coca-Cola polar bear as like a henchman.
That's what he was, the Coca-Cola.
That's who he was supposed to be. Yeah, like I don't know if they had the rights. They never referred to him as a Coca-Cola bear, but they made a reference to Coke as like non-brand specific cola, right? Because you know that Jinx buy me a Coke. Yeah. No, this movie this movie is so referential that like some might argue that is kind of a crutch that this film uses.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up.
Okay, I don't disagree with this. However, I think the references are so funny and so wacky that like it's forgivable in my opinion. Like this movie is no Roger Rabbit, right? It harkens to Roger Rabbit, but Roger Rabbit was still, I would say that is still the smarter film. But this is still, I thought, but this was a thoroughly enjoyable popcorn movie. Like the references were coming fast and furious, like the babies. I don't know if you saw that ad.
Yes, I
did. But I think the references, yeah, I could see how they could be a crutch. But thank God, overall though, the movie gave me like an interesting plot too to kind of like follow along and like enjoy. Like there was a mystery behind this, and not just a mystery, but kind of. You know, I think Peter Pan, for example, kind of a tragic character that they kind of fleshed out a little, which I was shocked. Yeah. He was also voiced by Will Arnett, who we just did him for Murderville. I'm just like, oh, I'm so glad that you got a little bit of a comeback on our podcast here.
Yeah.
You
know? I mean, the mystery was actually pretty good. You know, at first it was like, oh, are they just making this predictable? And then they were like, oh, let's add a little twist at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then they actually did something with Chip and Dale's relationship. And I will say that despite all of these many references and characters that they throw out there, the times that I felt were the funniest were actually between Chip and Dale.
Yes.
And not like any of these references that they throw in just because they can. There was this one part where they actually bonded again, and they butt heads together, and they succeeded or whatever. They did like a great job overcoming maybe the lizard or some character.
The snake.
Yeah, the snake.
The hip
And they're like
snake.
the hip hop. Yeah, so stupid. I don't love whales or whatever that was.
That was their song that they couldn't rap. Yeah.
Yeah, which was also quite funny. But they were like, I can't believe we did it. You said the same thing I said. And they kept doing that for like 2 minutes. I thought that was actually fucking hilarious.
Yes. Yes.
And I thought that overall, like, the script knew, okay, now it's time for there to be like a cool reference or something. But then they were like, now we're going to actually like build these characters and make a humor moment out of it. That's also going to like strengthen their relationship. It was funny and it felt organic, and it also like was adding to the relationship. So the script was written by Dan Greger and Doug Mand. I don't know if they're members of the Lonely Island. I think I only know of Andy Samberg and Akiva Schaffer as being 2 members of it.
Yeah, one of the actors who also did like I think he did another cameo is the 3rd member.
Okay.
Yeah. I
So,
don't know
but
his name,
not
but
one of the writers.
he's not. No, the writers actually. Okay, so I looked up the writers, and the writers, the other film of theirs that we covered very recently was Doolittle.
Oh.
Yeah, can you believe?
What a nice comeback for them.
A huge comeback, because you could not, if I didn't know that and you gave me these 2 scripts, like, are they the same writer? I'd be like, absolutely not. No way.
Wow. Yeah.
And because this one felt fresh. This one felt like so this is like a kind of movie that, like, as an adult, if I had a kid, the kid would enjoy this movie because it's like fun. But like me as the adult, seeing all these references, it's just like, it's also speaking to me, right? And I think that's like a good maker for a good film. But yeah, so they did Doolittle, and they're also tapped in to do a Grumpy Old Men movie.
Oh, that's going to be a remake.
It is, and also Rookie of the Year.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Really?
can you? Yeah, so like, I can't, like, these
Disney version of Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, well, Disney, 20th Century Fox owns Rookie of the Year, and so I think that Disney owns them now, but they're proceeding with like a Rookie of the Year remake, which I don't know who needs that.
Who the fuck needs that? Sometimes Disney does things. It's like, really?
Right.
Do people ask for cheaper by the dozen?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, good for them. We should make an award at the end of the year for best comeback.
Yeah, right. Because Will Arnett,
another contender.
He's a contender here.
Yeah.
No, I think in terms of, there were other references that I wanted to bring up real quick.
Well, at the end, they get the gang back together.
They do get the gang back together.
And
to save Monty.
Gadget to save Monty. So Monty's in the beginning, and then he comes back at the end. That's like the whole kind of like, catalyst for this, is that they need to save Monty.
He was Dumbo'd.
He was Dumbo'd, yes. And they get Gadget and what was the other guy's name? Zipper together. So they did something with those 2 characters.
They did. So the original voice actors came back. She reprised her
Tress
role.
McNally.
And they had a different actor completely play the role of Chip. They gave her like a very sexy.
I think
voice.
that's Dennis Haysbert,
I don't know
who
who he
does
is.
like the Allstate commercials.
Yes.
Oh, yes, that's right. Okay, yeah.
He was a president.
He was the president in 24.
24, yeah.
Yeah.
So he did the voice of Zipper. Again, how fucking wacky was that? And it worked. Also, isn't it weird that like the mouse and the fly had babies? Eddie called it out too, and I was just like, they're cartoons, but it is so freaky.
It is. So I guess that would be my only big qualm I have, which is I was totally grateful that there was no love story to be part of the Chip and Dale story. It was a friendship story. We don't need a love story.
Yes.
But why?
Although you could argue this was a love story, but
you could argue
not a romantic love, but a very
yeah,
much a love story.
This was a platonic love story. But we bring back Gadget.
They both didn't like end up with any girls.
They definitely played it like as a ex-gay couple.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I like it when people don't end up with anybody because it's not always about that. But
I mean, one single raising a dog, and the other one is working at the actual Chippendales.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the gayest thing I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
Working at Chippendales. But when we bring back Gadget, she might not be tied to Chip or Dale, but of course she's married. Of course, one of these guys that she worked with, she had to marry and settle down with. They just picked the most random one, which was the Fly.
Right.
But it's like, did they have to get married? Was that something we needed to see? Was that something that anyone was hoping for? And it's just, my only qualm is that they always have to do that for the women characters. It's like, well, what did she do with the rest of her life? Well, obviously she got married and had babies.
Had kids, lots of kids. I think like 20 something.
That's what women do. It's just
but
so
she's not
annoying.
she's not Zipper's the stay-at-home dad. He's raising the kids.
Yeah, I still was just like
inventing.
rolling my eyes at it. I was like,
I mean, I don't disagree, and I didn't think about that because I was watching obviously Chip and Dale, not Gadgets.
Right, but we get a female character other than Kiki Lane thrown in there, and that's what happens with her. So I was just
fair. I think it's a valid observation that I didn't think about. That obviously,
I'm excited for when that doesn't happen.
Sure.
Because I've been waiting a long time for that. Speaking of Kiki Lane, what did we think of her performance?
I thought she was wonderful. I thought she was sweet. I thought she brought a nice balance. She brought a nice balance to all the ridiculousness of this film.
It's okay. It's okay.
And that's what I really appreciated of her. I thought she was the bad guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They definitely set that up pretty well.
They red herring the shit out of me because I felt for it. I was just like, yeah, no, Chip is right.
Mm-hmm.
She's clearly a villain.
Yeah.
She's gonna be a femme fatale at the end.
I mean, your word "wonderful" is very generous. I wouldn't say she was wonderful, but she was good. I mean,
I thought she was cute.
After we found out that she wasn't the villain, I was like, okay, I could deal with this character more. I think the real star was Captain Putty at the end for me. I was just like, this is awesome.
When he goes old Terminator 2.
Yeah, that was great. And just the random shit he was saying. Okay, now you die, bye bye, and like all this just going fucking crazy.
Yeah, he was good. Well, for me, there was one. They brought in a de-aged Paula Abdul with MC Scat Cat. Do you remember that?
They were DJing. No. They were DJing.
They were DJing like one of the parties early in the
Roger Rabbit was dancing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm doing the Roger Rabbit with Roger
I remember
Rabbit.
that.
Yeah,
but
so
Paula Abdul was there.
Paula Abdul was dancing with MC Scat Cat, and it was so. You know who MC Scat Cat is, right?
They were DJing though.
They were DJing. I thought they were dancing together.
No, they were DJing.
Wait, hang on. Does Nicole know who MC Scat Cat is?
No, of course I don't.
Oh my god. MC Scat Cat is the character that was created for the "We Take 2 Steps Forward" opposites attract video and 2 steps back.
I think
in that video she dances with a cat, like an animated cat, MC Scat Cat, and they brought him back for this again. Absurd callback that no one needed, but when I saw it, I was just like laughing hysterically. Also, another random. This movie's all about references, guys. Like, but random one who no one ever talks about. They had a bonkers the Bobcat. Oh, you didn't watch Disney growing up, so you don't know who that is. Either.
But the listeners might.
That's a deep cut. Bonkers the Bobcat when they brought him back. So yeah, no, this movie had so much going on for it, and talk about me. I guess this is when I realized like, God, I have a short attention span because like they got me. It was like watching a well plotted Family Guy episode.
Oh God.
No, because Family Guy is all about those references. But I thought they were so cute and quirky in this movie that they worked for me. I'm fully aware of the tricks this film used to get me and to make me entertained, but I think overall, I think they did such a good job because I actually did like Chip and Dale's characters, played by John Mulaney and Andy Samberg.
Mm-hmm.
I felt their relationship. I felt John Mulaney's frustrations with Dale, played by Andy Samberg, but I think Andy Samberg, he might have been a little better because he really portrayed that kind of like aloofness, like that not realizing the hurt he caused his friend.
Yeah.
And thinking that everything's okay, right? Or at least being so delusional that you refuse to see the pain that you cause your friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and who would have known Chip and Dale were just so full of insecurities and self-doubt,
mm-hmm.
Just like the rest of us are. I mean, this movie, if you watch the trailer, you already know what the movie's going to be in store for. So it's kind of crazy if you watch it and complain about all the references, because that's kind of why you came, I would at least assume. So I had no problems with any of that. And I guess I was expecting something of the film, and the film did somewhat surprise me. Because I was like, oh, well, it's just going to be references and predictability. And like, it was a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, and I vocalized the biggest problems that I had with it. But overall, like, I feel like I would just be the biggest asshole if I were to be like, this movie sucks. Because it's also just meant to be like
Silly.
fun and silly, and
Yeah.
like it's not taking itself seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And it just wants to have a good time with you and take you down memory lane in its own weird way.
Right.
And this is totally meant for. So we usually ask this question, actually, before I say who I think it's totally meant for. We kind of stopped asking this question, but I'm going to now ask you, Rolando, who is this film made for?
I think it's made for people who grew up with Chippendales Rescue Rangers, but want to share it with their kids.
I could,
yeah.
yeah. I completely agree. I think this film's made for millennials.
Yeah.
I think we grew up watching the films like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Space Jam, and I think that's very like something that we as a generation crave. I don't think Gen Z craves this or anything. And we also are, I think, the generation that really cherishes what we grew up on, which is why there's such a huge market for it now, because we're of the age to be the main consumers of all these remakes, reboots, and revivals.
Right.
And yes, we are very, I mean, most generations are, but I think millennials kind of take the cake with, you know, kind of wanting to pass down what they love so much to other people, mainly their children.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because I will give Disney Studios this. They took risks that you don't expect from Disney.
Okay.
In this movie, they weren't like the biggest risks, but they took some calculated risks. I think like making Peter Pan a villain was a risky move. They could have amplified it, like you said, with like the Swedish Chef, for example. Like they could have made him a bad guy, and I think we would have understood that this is just for this movie, not the Swedish Chef himself. And it's crazy. I think this is not a critique of Disney in general, but like how much IP they own, and they can do this kind of stuff with. Without needing to reach out to like other studios and stuff is kind of.
It's crazy how much IP they own, and they're doing Rookie of the Year.
It's not a good thing. Like this is, like, you know, the reason Roger Rabbit is also like such a big deal is because Disney had to work out a deal with Warner Brothers that their main characters like Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny will share the same amount of screen time. Not one will have more than the other, right? And they had to like, this was like ironclad contracts that they had. Disney, because of its, when it bought up Marvel, Pixar, and 20th Century Fox, like,
and Star Wars,
and Star Wars. I didn't. Oh wait, no, there were Star Wars references. Yeah, they don't need to do that. They can just like, all right, we're gonna pluck you and just have you in this, you know?
Yeah.
And it's problematic for sure. But
yeah.
I got a decent movie out of it, so whatever.
Well, you know, but like back in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, you know, there was no way of seeing Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny in the same screen like that ever before.
Right.
Like the whole like dueling pianos and stuff. It's so different now with streaming and with the fact that like all these companies have either bought each other or they've done like either commercials or something, like where everything's just so accessible. Is that something that is as wow as it was when like Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out in 1989, I believe. You know, a full 30 something years later, like, has that lost its magic? This film is very much trying to access the magic of that. Now, would you say this film, it's like, oh yeah, no, I felt that kind of magic, or it was just funny and it was kind of ironic. It was kind of sarcastic. It was more like where we are now as a generation. Not like where Roger Rabbit was. So it's interesting how much things have changed, and yet somewhat things have stayed the same.
I mean, it gave me things from obviously the catalog that Disney doesn't own. So, for example, one of the dumbest moments in the movie was E.T. versus Batman, right?
Yeah.
And when they show you a clip of it, right, like E.T. I think, what does he say? Thank you or something.
No.
Do you remember?
E.T. forgive Bat.
And then just they cut to Batman, who's just
He's
like,
like,
fine.
fine.
Like, it's just like,
So
just
stupid.
so fucking dumb. And then
Yeah.
of course, like, Chip is watching this movie crying with his dog. You know what I mean? Yeah, I so to your point though, like this movie did that, but it did it in a funny way without necessarily being like the joke itself was the circumstances around the IP, not the fact that these two IPs are coming together for this property.
Yeah. Which I think was maybe what Space Jam: A New Legacy was going more for, but they also were going more for like the magical world of Warner Brothers,
Right.
where I don't
Yes.
think they were saying the magical world of Disney-owned properties in this one.
Yeah, no, they were just yeah, you're right. Like
Yeah, it was
I
more like
think-
the ludicrousness of pop culture and stuff.
yeah, because Space Jam was very transparent in the fact that it was just like, look at WB's catalog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where
yeah.
this one, they were figuring out jokes that were funny or absolutely bonkers that we could feature them in this movie.
But
Mm-hmm.
do you think also it's making fun of the sense of like now we've introduced Marvel's multiverse, right? So now you can do all these other things. You could put characters together that would never have been together before within this Marvel universe, and now so the multiverse. So you have this idea of like now we're remaking, we're reviving, we're rebooting everything, but then you have the dark side of all that, which is the bootleg.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's like the dark side of those things.
Well, if there's any studio who would hate bootlegs, it would be Disney. Absolutely, 100%, right?
Yeah.
So
mhm.
obviously, this is why they made them the bad guy. In terms of like, yes, I think there is a pop culture fascination with like crossing over universes and stuff. We've seen it with Rick and Morty, that movie, Everything All the Time.
Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yes, that movie. And then obviously WandaVision and the
Doctor Strange
and the Multiverse of
Multiverse
Madness, which you finally
Yeah,
got to
no,
see because of COVID, you know.
Oh, well, that's the trend right now is multiverses and kind of like all of these things converging together. And I do think that what does that say about where we are? Because like all of these trends that happen, you know, like the apocalypse movies that happened around like Y2K, you know, because people were prepared for the end of the world and they kind of wanted to see it.
Oh, I can tell
So
you
it's-
why.
Why
Oh,
we're
I
so
have a
obsessed with the
theory.
multiverse right
Yeah.
now? Let me hear it.
I think our obsession with the multiverse is that a lot of us feel that right now we're in the darkest timeline, and it's just like I think there's like a glimmer of hope. It's just like maybe there's another universe out there where things are better.
Yeah. And maybe we can
Community
access it
reference.
to save
Yes.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Community reference.
Nice. Okay. So was this film needed?
Shockingly, yeah. I knew we were going to cover this, and I was kind of rolling my eyes a little bit when
What did I say?
I
What did
wanted to
say?
cover it, but I didn't think it was going to be good. And yeah, no, I kind of came out saying it's just like, oh wow, I thought this was fresh. I liked it. I needed this. I needed this because it kind of, on some way, kind of like also solidified what I liked about the characters Chip and Dale in the original one, which obviously they're not the same characters, but like they were always referencing that TV show and kind of what made it good, at least with Kiki's character.
Yeah, true. Even though she wasn't able to access it in Albany, which I thought was so random.
It's like old people can't use technology. There's
Yeah.
no way his her grandmother
Recorded
would have
it
been
and
recorded
mailed
it.
it to her. Yeah, that was funny. So I can't necessarily say that I needed this as a person who didn't really watch Chip and Dale growing up and has no real ties to that period of Disney consumption, but I'm glad I got it. It was enjoyable. It was a nice break from my sickness. And yeah, I mean, we've covered a lot of these direct to Disney Plus movies, and most of them have not been good.
Yeah.
So it was nice to see a good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was a yeah, I was absolutely surprised at how much I enjoyed this
Yeah.
film.
I feel like Disney almost didn't realize what they had, because if they did, maybe they would have released it in theaters. Although the Pixar film they released to Disney Plus was also quite good. I don't know why that didn't go to theaters.
Which one?
But
Red?
Seeing Red?
Turning Red, yeah.
Turning Red.
Turning
That
Red.
was a good one.
That
I
was
don't.
very
They're
good.
they're being. I don't know. They're playing games with their what's it called? With
They
their,
are.
With this,
Yeah.
It's not that they need it because right now their numbers are doing pretty well, especially compared to like Netflix's Spiral.
Yeah.
So, but
Jeez.
this could be part of that plan, right? Like release good content that Netflix hasn't in a while.
Or they're like, hey, maybe more Disney Plus memberships will happen if a film as good as Chip and Dale comes out, and
Or
people
even
will
Turning
talk
Red,
about
yeah.
it.
Turning
Yeah,
Red.
yeah.
And
Or
let's
even
not
Turning
forget,
Red,
I
yeah.
mean, their whole Marvel franchise with all the new Marvel and Star Wars shows coming out.
Yeah.
It's,
All they have to do is release like 3 movies in the theaters, and they'll be fine. Because
Yes,
everyone goes sees
exactly.
these movies.
So I guess what I'm hearing is Disney Plus, give us some money.
It's about time, guys. We've been plugging your stuff for a while.
And we
So
only complain very rarely.
only very rarely. Only when you do bad things.
That's why the mouse doesn't forget, you know.
Yeah, maybe we'll cut that out. But what do you guys think? Did you see Chip and Dale? Are you a fan of them? And were you even happy with this new film? Did you enjoy it? Did it hit all your boxes? Let us know. Or I should say, did it check off all your boxes? Let us know. You should email us. Email us remakesrebootsrevivals@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at Remakes Reboots Revivals. We actually have a really funny video up right now where we reference last week's episode of Firestarter. So you got to see Firestarter to get it, but hopefully you get it. We're on Twitter at Remakes Podcast. You can also find us on Facebook.com/Remakes Reboots Revivals. We're also on YouTube. Search for Remakes Reboots Revivals. And if you want to chat with us and leave us a voicemail and get it maybe played on one of these very nice episodes, you got to call this number.
862-248-2326. That's 862-248-2326.
I'm sorry if I threw you off there. I usually say, Rolando, what's that number?
I was
But-
reading I had just got an email and it's a tech
Oh,
issue that I'm
I
having.
see. You're already checked out. Wow. Okay.
You know, it's just ending.
It is rather late at night, but yeah, this was fun. The movie was fun, and hopefully the fun will continue next week when we go to the movie theater to cover the long-awaited Top Gun sequel.
It's only in theaters. I can't like just
Only in
pay
theaters.
$20
No,
to
it's
watch
yeah,
it at
it's
home.
nope.
Ugh.
And it's gonna be worth it because it's gonna
I don't
gonna
think so.
sound
I
and look
haven't-
great.
Oh,
And the movie is gonna be whatever, but it's gonna be worth going to the movie theater movie to see. I don't know. Tune in next week, guys, and find out how we feel about this. Was Rolando pleased? Was Nicole disappointed? Anybody surprised?
I'm disappointed I had to watch Top Gun. I've never seen it.
All right. Well, I can't wait to hear those thoughts. Until next time, stay
Stay
unoriginal.
unoriginal.